Not at all, but I don't believe he ever thought. It was that he and his shadow, when brought near each other, would join like drops of water. And when they did not, he was appalled. He tried to stick it on with soap from the bathroom, but that also failed. A shudder passed through Peter. He sat on the floor and cried. His sobs woke Wendy. She sat up in bed. She was not alarmed to see a stranger crying on the nursery floor. She was only pleasantly interested. "Boy," she said courteously, "why are you crying?" Peter could be exceedingly polite also, having learned the grand manner at fairy ceremonies, and he rose and bowed to her beautifully. She was much pleased and bowed beautifully to him from the bed. "What's your name?" he asked. "Wendy Moira Angela Darling," she replied with some satisfaction. "What is your name?" "Peter Pan." She was already sure he must be Peter. But it did seem to be a comparatively short name. "Is that all?" "Is that all?" "Yes," he said rather sharply, for the first time that it was a shortish name. "I'm so sorry," said Wendy Moira Angela. "It doesn't matter," he gulped. "Where do you live, Peter?" "Second to the right," said Peter, "and then straight on till morning." What a funny address! Peter had a sinking. For the first time he felt that perhaps it was a funny address. "No, it isn't," he said. "I mean," Wendy said nicely, remembering that she was hostess. "Is that what they put on the letters?" He wished he had not mentioned letters. "Don't get any letters," he said contemptuously. "But your mother gets letters." "Don't have a mother," he said. Not only had he no mother, but he had not the slightest desire to have one. He thought them very overrated persons. Wendy, however, felt at once that she was in the presence of a tragedy. "Oh, Peter, no wonder you were crying." She sympathized and ran to him. "I wasn't crying about mothers. I was crying because I can't get my shadow to stick on. Besides, I wasn't crying." Peter, indignantly, cleared up. "It's come off, has it?" "Yes." Then Wendy saw the shadow on the floor, looking so draggled that she felt frightfully sorry for Peter. How awful! But then she couldn't help but smile at the fact that Peter had tried to stick it on himself with soap. How exactly like a boy. Fortunately, she knew exactly what to do. "It must be sewn on," she said, just a little patronizingly. "What's sewn?" Peter asked, puzzled. "Oh my, you're dreadfully ignorant," Wendy rubbed in. "I'm not." But she was exulting in his ignorance. "I shall sew it on to you, my little man." They were the same height. "I dare say it might hurt a little," she warned. "Oh, I shan't cry," said Peter, who was already of the opinion that he never cried in his entire life. And he clenched his teeth and he did not cry. And soon his shadow was behaving properly. Peter was jumping about in the wildest glee. Alas, he had already forgotten that he owed his bliss to Wendy. He thought he had attached the shadow himself. "Oh, how clever I am," he crowed rapturously. "Oh, the cleverness of me." It is humiliating to have to confess that this conceit of Peter was one of his most fascinating qualities. To put it with brutal frankness, there never was a cockier boy. But for the moment Wendy was shocked. "You conceit!" she exclaimed with frightful sarcasm. "Of course I did nothing." "You did a little," Peter conceded carelessly, and continued to dance. "I've been away from you a long time. Never thought I'd miss you so. Somehow I feel your love is real. Love ya, how I love ya, how I love ya, how I love ya. In a canyon, in a cavern, excavating for a mine, lived a miner, 49er, and his daughter, Clementine. Like she was just like a feather, and her shoes were number 9. Earring boxes without topses, sandals were for Clementine. Rosy lips under the water, blowing bubbles mighty fine. But alas, I was no swimmer, so I lost my Clementine. How I missed her, how I missed her, how I missed my Clementine, till I kissed her little sister and forgot my Clementine. The birds are singing, it is song-time, the banjo's strumming soft and low. I know that you yearn for me too. How I love you, how I love you, how I love ya. Hold me by the heart and tied me in a string. Now I'm dangling, dangling, ling, ling. Alu como se va. Très bien, très bien, très bien. Bonjour, bonsoir, bonne nuit. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. If I am no use, I can at least withdraw. And she sprang in the most dignified way into bed and covered her face with the blankets. To induce her to look up, he pretended to be going away, and when this failed, he sat at the end of the bed and tapped her gently with his foot. "Wendy," he said, "don't withdraw. I can't help crowing, Wendy, when I'm pleased with myself." Still she would not look up, though she was listening eagerly. "Wendy," he continued, in a voice that no woman has ever been able to resist. "Wendy, one girl is more use than 20 boys." Now, Wendy was every inch a woman, though there were not very many inches, and she peeped out of the bedclothes. "Do you really think so, Peter?" "Yes, I do. I think it's perfectly sweet of you," she declared. "And I'll get up again." And she sat with him on the side of the bed. She also said she would give him a kiss if he liked. But Peter did not know what she meant, and he held out his hand expectantly. "Surely you know what a kiss is?" she asked, aghast. "I shall know when you give it to me," Peter replied. And to spare his feelings, Wendy handed him a thimble. "And now," said he, "shall I give you a kiss?" She replied with a slight primness, "If you please." She made herself rather cheap by inclining her face toward him. I etched my way across the room to the teacher's desk, laden with piles of A4 paper sheets and brown paper envelopes. I had filled my forms, and I had to submit them by putting them on one of these piles or into one of these envelopes. And there he was, hand outstretched, palm open, smoldering eyes, daunted by the Mars and Scorpio intensity of his expectant gaze. I conceded. I placed my filled-out form in his open palm, his fist closed, and he looked down, shocked, confused. Composing himself, he straightened out the crumpled balls of paper in his hands. He straightened himself up, too, and it was as if I wasn't even standing there anymore. He placed the sheets in the piles and envelopes in which they actually rightfully belonged. The turtle had recoiled into his shell, and I had the epiphany that he wanted my hand, not my forms. "You thought that was my hand! You thought that was my hand! You thought that was my hand!" He averted my gaze, walking past me, back towards me, and the more he ignored me, the more excited I got. "You thought that was my hand! You thought that was my hand! You thought that was my hand!" I reiterated on automated loop. I couldn't help myself. I was so excited, so enthralled by the epiphany. He wanted my hand. "Yoo-hoo, could you take our forms too?" Two girls ushered him less than half a foot away from me. His back was still towards me, and my hand went on his shoulder. "You thought that was my hand! You thought that was my hand! You thought that was my hand!" He turned his head sideways and stared impassively at my hand on his shoulder. I retracted my hand. It was the most neutral look I've ever seen. His cool salamander eyes and expressionless poker face followed my hand and then looked up at my face. And I was quiet. I was very, very quiet. We both were. Not even the hint of a smile or a sneer. The most neutral, expressionless, blank slate poker face looked at me. Back to Wendy, Moira, Angela, darling. The poor thing, Peter Pan, placed an acorn button into the palm of her hand. She forgot he didn't know what a kiss was, that he just learned that a kiss was a thimble. "Oh, my darling, oh, my darling, oh, my darling Clementine, You were lost and gone forever. Dreadful sorry. Maybe Corona's a wuss, and this will scare Corona off. No? It's not even scaring me off. It shouldn't be a goal. But yes, a good warm-up for an Aries third house native like me. Showing off silver hair. Weird. Yes. Auntie, you're here. I'm like you. My only surviving grandparent. I want to get to know you.
Very good.
Auntie, let's have a sing.
Very good.
Stop blocking my pot. Stop standing in my way. The boathouse doesn't seat singles. What will you do there? Is someone waiting for you there? Like you won't get a seat. You won't get a table. Why, thank you for your concern, but that's my problem and I'll figure it out. Please stop blocking my pot. How I love you. How I love you. It's 17th March 2020, Pancake Day, and I don't have eggs.
A traditional, basic,
I'm still gonna make a
classic
video.
pancake has 4 main ingredients: buttermilk, flour, egg, and sugar. Egg white and sugar, when battered, make a very fluffy thing that makes a fluffy pancake. When battered, when whisked. Yes, whisked. Okay, when whisked together, egg white and sugar make a fluffy batter that makes a fluffy pancake once it's fried in the pan. I've got honey, not sugar, because it's better for you. Got cocoa powder and butter as well. So I don't have eggs. We're out of eggs. I do have
An apple.
apple. I could put an apple in here too. I like making things with butter and apple and cocoa powder and maybe honey for flavor. We're out of eggs, so I can't make a pancake, not today. Not on Pancake Day. So that's that.